Hi there, and welcome everybody to the Warmup on the This Is Ibrox show. Today I'm joined by three esteemed guests. We've got Ben. How are you doing today?
Yeah, a little bit better as the days go on from Sunday. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, that's a difficult question. And Chris, how are you doing?
Alright, not bad. Looking forward to it.
And JB, you're a glutton for punishment. You were at that Old Firm game at the weekend there, and then away seeing Everton and Leicester. How are you doing today as well?
Yeah, all good. Yeah, it was 2 heavy days, but it was two not favourable results either from the teams that we were following on the days. So yeah, let's move on from that quickly.
Yeah, certainly. Both teams there, I certainly think, looking for a major rebuild next season, but that's certainly something we'll come on to as the pod progresses. It feels like every Wednesday I'm on a pod these days, I'm discussing off-field changes. Yesterday it was announced that Craig Mulholland will be leaving Rangers at the end of the season. He's rumoured to be following Ross Wilson down to Nottingham Forest. It's also been widely reported today that Director of Finance and Football Administration Andrew Dickson will leave his role at the club. I couldn't believe it when I saw that he joined the club in 1991. I mean, he's been there for as long as I've been alive, which is absolutely insane. I think there's a discussion to have around the academy. Given the departure of Mulholland, we'll discuss the sort of post-split fixtures, and we'll look ahead to our game v Aberdeen at the weekend, which is always one of my favourite subjects to talk about. And just seen it in the comments here as well. Just for anybody, you can listen to us and you can watch Rangers, the Rangers youth game in the background on BBC Scotland. So if anybody's watching this and isn't aware of that, that's just a wee heads up there. Look, with on this, I like to do a wee on this day. I will do one in a wee minute, but I think there's only one place to start today, given it being quite a poignant day for the Rangers support. On this day last year, Rangers lost their kitman, Jimmy Bell, at the age of 69. The infamous kitman started out at Rangers during as a first team, I was going to say coach, but he was driving the coaches. And then when he moved to kitman in 1986 under Souness, Jimmy Bell was at Rangers again for 30 years, which is an insane amount of time. He worked under 11 different Rangers managers, and I was doing a quick calculation. I think he's been there for a fifth of the time that the club's been in existence, which is crazy. And in that time that he was there, he must have lifted or got his hands on the trophies: 18 league titles, 9 Scottish Cups, 14 League Cups, and 2 European Cup finals. It was a father figure to many players, as we see the reams of tributes that are coming out today. And genuinely, from my own point of view, the biggest sort of compliment and tribute I could pay to Jimmy Bell is that I don't think I've ever been at a Rangers dinner or an event where there's somebody speaking where there hasn't been a Jimmy Bell story. I see you nodding your head away there, GB, so I'll come to you first. Just a few words on Jimmy Bell and what he meant to everybody as Rangers supporters.
Yeah, I think as you touched on there, in terms of an important figure throughout the history, if you think of some of the players that he dealt with, some of the not just the elder players as well. If you look at a lot of the youth players talk through. Once you got on his good side, you could stay on his good side, but you had to earn that respect. But I think the continuity must have give the club, even through the bad times. I think he was a real figurehead of the club, and I think that all came together when we seen how much it meant to this current group of players in the Leipzig game. You seen the outpouring of emotion both pre and post match, and you do wonder whether the extra 10% that the players gave us that night, you just wonder whether that was the difference, and that they couldn't have done a better tribute to him than ultimately winning. I think everyone that you speak to, he was a winner. And he'll be fondly remembered. Just before we come online, I don't know if everyone's seen it, but the Broomland Collective have announced that it's going to be a retro Rangers shirt day in tribute against the Aberdeen. So that'll be good to see some of the old classics getting dusted out the wardrobe. So that'll be good to see. But cracking fella by all accounts. And as you said earlier, any sportsman's dues or anything. We recently had Marvin Andrews down on the Wirral, and he couldn't say enough nice words. He was close to tears when he was telling us a wee story. So, no, great man, and he'll long be in the memory.
Yeah, that's that exactly. And Ben, I'll come to you next. And just to pay tribute to Jimmy Bell, as JB said there, he was, he was a standard setter at the club. That I think that's the best way that you can describe him. We've all heard his antics in terms of taking big names down a peg or two. But I mean, what's your memories of Jimmy Bell and how integral was he to Rangers Football Club?
Yeah, I think we live in an age now where the word legend is thrown about all over the place, undeservedly. But in his case, for the service that he's given to the club and what the club meant to him, and how he represented the club, he really is, is and always will be a Rangers legend. I think when you just have to hear any of the players, and what speaks to me is, he has that sort of sense of humor and stuff. He's always famous for, but it seems to be players of all different nationalities just were drawn to him, loved him, and I think it was a big part of how certain players probably fell in love with the club, and I think it's a huge loss to us to not have that, to not have someone driving the standards and certainly not putting up with certain performances like we've been seeing recently. He certainly would have been on at players and As much as he was a kit man, he wasn't a coach in the football sense, but he was a mentor to so many of them, and I think that is a huge loss.
Yes, Chris, I'll come to you next. JB sort of touched on that Leipzig game. I'm sure we can all remember. There was such emotion in the stadium before it, and the tributes during the day and all that. I mean, I've never experienced anything like that. I mean. And I just remember when Kamara scored that fantastic goal to put us 2-0 up ahead, you just saw him taking that armband off and what Jimmy Bell meant to him. I mean, where do you sit on this all and yeah, pay your tribute to as Ben said, a Rangers legend?
It was a special night, and I think, obviously, as JB said, I think they gave the players an extra 10-15% that night. He was essentially the last of the old guard in my mind, him and Walter. Once they went, it's kind of like fans could take solace that when he was there and involved, because he's a fan like us. He was going through the same feeling as us. If it's no good enough, he wouldn't be the last one to tell them to get their ideas sorted. Hopefully, it gets acknowledged in some sort of capacity for the club.
Yeah, 100%. I think that certainly should be the next step for Rangers. Even renaming the training ground, I think, would be very, very appropriate for Jimmy Bell. But yeah, I think that's a great tribute paid by everyone here on the This Is Ibrox network, and thanks for that, guys. And I will stick to my tradition of doing a wee on this day, GB. So I'll come to you for this one. On this day in the year 2000, Rangers defeat Hibs 5-2 at Ibrox with Barry Ferguson scoring, Billy Dodds an own goal, and Albert's double, which I'm reliably informed the second was a peach. And Rangers this season went on 20 games unbeaten, 22 points clear ahead at the top of the league at this point, which nowadays seems like a bit of a pipe dream. And this was league title 49. What was your memories of that season, JB, and anything in that game in particular?
Yeah, the game in particular, as I say, when you give us the prompt that you're going to be running through, I scrubbled onto YouTube to see it. But yeah, another Albert classic, I think. In terms of that team itself, from memory, that team didn't get off to the best of starts that season and really grew throughout as the season went on. But as you said, was a 20-match winning run, and then the only probably disappointment was could we have gone that wee bit further in Europe again? That was kind of the golden challenge for the teams that we had in the early 90s, and then going into the 2000s was that's probably a wee bit of a regret that we never took that next step. But in terms of some of the players and the talent that we had on show, was fantastic because that was around obviously we Rod Wallace and obviously Albert, and you touched on Billy Dodd. So yeah, it was a good time to be a Rangers fan, and say slightly depressing at the same breath, and the fact that we need to get back to them days as quickly as possible because that team was full of winners, albeit the budget at the time would have been significantly a lot higher. But you just knew there was a wee core of players in there who knew what it meant to be a Rangers man. So, yeah, bring back them days as quickly as we can.
Yeah, no, that's it, exactly it. I said that was the kind of season that I was really getting into football. I was about 9, 10 years old then. And as Ben and I were discussing before we came on, that is my all-time favourite Rangers strip. I remember Kanchelskis being a bit of a beast in that team when he needed to. Rod Wallace, as you said there, I absolutely loved watching him play. And I don't know if I ever made it out. Now, this is Ibrox Network, but when my Ranger loving, Michael Moles was numero uno in terms of strikers for me and that team, and he was just superb. Look, let's get to chatting to matters a bit more current. I'll start with you, Ben, here. It's another off-field change, and that director of finance and football administration it's not officially confirmed, but loads of media outlets are reporting that it looks like he is. Andrew Dickson looks to be Offski. He's another one. He's been at the club since 1991. And this marks 5 major departments in recent months. That's the chairman Park gone, the director of football Ross Wilson gone, the CEO Stuart Robertson gone, Craig Mulholland, the academy director, who we'll come on to chat about after this, and now Andrew Dickson. The new chairman John Bennett is not messing about, Ben.
No, he's certainly not. I mean, which in my opinion is a good thing. I think the club needs an overhaul, and it seems to be getting that. What I would like to see now is us starting to try and fill some of these roles as well, because obviously we've moved one position, but we need to see the planning where this is going to go. It's all well and good to be moving people on, and it's good, and there's no one being moved on thus far that I'd have any disappointment with. So now is the time to kind of see what's next for us and where we're going to go. But I think it's good. I think we need a fresh approach in all aspects, from players right through the board. And I think we're starting to get that. So may I continue?
Yeah, Chris, I'll ask you a similar question. As Ben touched on there, I mean, it's very evident we need a bit of a freshen up on the field. It looks like there's a freshen up off the field happening as well. I mean, what do you think this is? Do you think Bennett does have some sort of, major strategy here where he's just getting rid of sort of all the old guard, so to speak? Or do you just think that it's just time for a change?
I'm not too sure if it's him or if it's Bisgrove that's got free rein or what's happening. I'm not too sure, but we've been failing all over, on the park, off the park, and the fans wanted change, so we're getting it now. Whether it'll be good or a bad thing, I'm not too sure. Hopefully, Bisgrove's got plenty of connections in football, so hopefully he can get the right people earmarked for the jobs and in the door as soon as possible. I think it kind of takes away the idea of the no jobs for the boys anymore. As you said, the kind of old guards went to the door. Hopefully we're trying to modernise the backroom staff a bit, but they were saying we're best in class. It's been stagnant. We've sat on 55. We haven't pushed forward, so I don't know if Bennett and Bisgrove are on the same page and they're just looking to modernise everything in the backroom team and just getting rid of everything. But interesting times, whether if it's investment that's coming into the club or if we should be panicking, because usually if there's this turnover of staff in a company, it's panic stations. But I think this one we should be embracing the changes. We all needed it.
Yeah, that's it. I think there's 2 words there that you've hit on. I think Rangers fans certainly are looking to embrace the change. It'll be very interesting. Again, that's a discussion we'll have a wee bit later on about what happens with these roles. Are they going to get merged? Are people going to be taking on multiple responsibilities type things? But JB, the comments are coming in already. William here says it does look like we're clearing out all these guys ahead of a potential new investment. I knew it was only going to be a matter of time, seeing as that the sort of annual Twitter rumours are going about for a takeover. But where do you sit in all this? I mean, I know I've seen certain stories that are, as Chris alluded to, that are what will we say, have leanings that are not towards Rangers, are saying it's panic stations. It's worrying that all these changes are happening. But to me, the other word that Chris said there was it's stagnant. It was clear that we slept behind the wheel a wee bit in 55. Do you think this is just Bennett coming in and freshening things up?
I think so. I mean, obviously after the as has been said a few times, as soon as people start taking banners to games, you're never going to turn that round. You could probably, I can't even think of a case where there's been banners and then somebody has turned it around. It might not have gone as quickly as the people would have wanted, but it needed a change. The whole thing just needed refreshed. As I think it was Ben touched on there, it was not just on the park that needed refreshed. On the park, the most important thing. Let's not escape that. But there's got to be a really strong infrastructure that sits behind all of that. And I don't feel as if at the moment anybody feels engaged with anything either on or off the park. So, and the only way you can kind of do that is to change the way that you do things today. So I think there was people saying tail end of Ross Wilson's reign, it was almost a case of, well, if he come out and told us what he done, then we'd probably have a bit more sympathy for him. No, we wouldn't. Let's have it right. Because if we weren't winning, we wouldn't have cared what he done, what he told us he done. However, it's now a chance for a clean slate for all these guys that are coming in to tell us the vision, to try and take us on the journey with them, because it's almost we're going to start seeing things from the ground up a wee bit, and a definite change was needed. I mean, Craig Mulholland, obviously they listed out some of his achievements and I know we'll get to some of the youth players later, but by all accounts what he's done has been remarkable, albeit from a fan's perspective we won't always see that. As I say, if rumours are to be true, he's going to go to Nottingham Forest, who've got a hell of a lot of money, so they could probably have their pick of people. So if he was to go there, it's probably as a sign that the guy knows his stuff. You might say, well, they took Wilson, so how much do they know? But again, if Ross Wilson was standing in an interview and was to list off the achievements in the time that he was there, he could probably blag back a good interview. In terms of Europa League finals, league titles, cup wins, progression to the Champions League, record sales, you could spin it. But yeah, by all accounts, the stuff that he's done has been quite transformational. And yeah, as we always say, we like to see people leave with a bit of dignity, and best of luck to him in his next role. I'll be interested to see whether there's going to be further shake-ups. Whether we see a new B team manager that might be maybe a bit more aligned to Beale's style. Will there be any change to the women's side of things in terms of the management role there? And obviously there's been a wee bit of carry on after one of the women's old firms recently, so you wonder whether there might be a wee bit of a shake up there as well. But no, as we've all said, it was time for change, and seeing it now is going to be really interesting over the next few weeks and months. I just hope the club use it as an opportunity to, as I said earlier, to take the fans on that journey with them. Because if these people just come in and just disappear into the ether, it's going to be the same old. But again, we all got the email, the My J's members got the email today in regards to the engagement sessions that Bishrow's looking to do. So it's a tiny step, but it's a step forward nonetheless.
Yeah, 100%. It's, I mean, you've made lots of good points in there. It's, and I think RFC 72 is backing you up there. We were stale and couldn't do any better with the current lot. Needs refreshed, as Bennett would say. Go for the best in class. And this is an easy one for you here, Ben. Blue Nose John here says, is there a streamlining exercise going on with potential American investors taking over? I'll ask it because, you know, the comments are coming in about it. What do you make about this? Do you think that it is being cleaned out for investment, or I know there's been rumours going about of a takeover as well. What's your thoughts on all this?
I'm skeptical. I'll be honest. I mean, how many times have we heard that? I think it's just more new chairman coming in, reset of the whole club, basically being done. Wanting to do things in his way, and then in terms of the academy, I think Beale's obviously putting his stamp as well.
Oh well, there's Ben obviously feeling like that. Chris, I'll throw the similar question out to yourself. What do you make of all this? Do you think that Bennett is potentially paving the way for investors and or a potential takeover? And I see I'm being called out here. Curry Muncher says, Kyle, how confident are you that it's just a Twitter rumour? And how much pounds are you confident? I said that I'm not a betting man, but as I said, I don't know. I'm certainly not one that claims to be in the know or anything like that. But I mean, where do you sit on all this, Chris?
I am kind of the same as Ben. It's just the annual investment rumour coming for the USA, or is it Hong Kong? I know that was last year's one, but I just can't see it. Hopefully but I can't see it. I think it was Curry Muncher that said last night there was change in there and on the comments, so maybe he's a wee bit in the know. We can let us know, Curry Muncher.
Yeah, definitely. It sounds it'll be interesting times ahead. I mean, we'll never rule anything out, but I don't imagine taking over a football club is an easy process. And I mean, if you're looking at, I mean, I'm trying to think of the most recent sort of high-profile club that was bought over is Newcastle. Is the only one I can sort of think of, and they were linked for years and years and years with Saudi investors before it actually happened. And I know that the name Kyle Fox has been out there for a wee while, but I'm not sure. But it'll be interesting to see what happens over the coming months. There's obviously something afoot at Rangers with the amount of changes, and I just see in the comments there that Rangers are 1-0 up in the under-18s Youth Cup final, which is always positive. I'll just add Ben back. Look, we'll move on to the sort of next phase of chat. As JB sort of alluded to earlier on, Academy Director Craig Mulholland will leave his role at the end of the season after 20 years at Rangers. A statement from the club as follows. Rangers can today confirm that Academy Director Craig Mulholland has decided to leave the club at the end of the season. The 45-year-old has played a huge role in transforming the club's youth set up into a truly elite programme, which is now comparable with that of top European clubs. He joined the Light Blues in 2003 initially as a football and a community manager and held various roles in becoming head of academy in 2015. In that time, the club have developed talent such as Nathan Patterson, Billy Gilmore, Robbie McCrory, Leon King, Alex Lowley, and Adam Devine. I noticed there's no Ross McCrory in that, but we'll maybe come to that later on. Speaking as he prepares to depart Rangers, Mulholland commented, "I have loved my last 20 years working at the club that I had grown up with, and in particular the last 8, leading our academy, B team and women's team. However, in all the leadership positions, sometimes knowing when the right time to move on is important as decided which opportunities to take. My successor will inherit some fantastic people working passionately to deliver on a clear strategic vision underpinned by strong processes and modern innovative methodology." God, they're making this statement easy to read out. They will also inherit some outstanding young talents, which will lead to an exciting future for the club and academy over the next few years. I'm immensely proud of all we have achieved, and I would like to thank John, Stuart, James, and all of the current and previous board members for the fantastic support. We wish Michael and his staff the very best for the future. Above all, I would like to thank each and every one of the young players who drive our motivation and energy every single day. I must say, that is a bit of a classy sign-off, JB. What do you make of Mulholland moving on, and do you agree that his time as the academy director has been a success? Has he changed it so that we are now matching the output of top European level clubs?
I suppose it's hard to measure, isn't it? I mean, in terms of the games that we're competing in now, in comparison to prior to them coming in, you'd probably say it's probably night and day. But in terms of because obviously we've got the UEFA youth tournaments that we've been heavily involved in, the B team, I'd imagine he would have been a heavily input into the setup of that, the women's team going professional. So all of these things are all kind of pass marks. I suppose ultimately as a fan, in terms of where we are, is which players are coming through coming through. Ultimately, he's probably not incentivized on that. It's probably just a part of his role. But ultimately, as fans, that's what we're looking for. And for me, given the fact that our model is to be self-sustainable, I would like to have seen more coming through. Now, there could be a catalogue of excuses as to why that hasn't happened. I mean, the only one we've lost a couple. Obviously, we lost the lad to Villa, was it Wilson, and we lost obviously Billy Gilmore went down to Chelsea a few years ago now. But in between now and then, I haven't heard of too much where Rangers have lost out to maybe a big European club or a team down from England. So we've had plenty of time and opportunity to kind of blood people through. I do have a level of sympathy with with us trying to get youth into the first team because of just how demanding we are. I mean, we bring experienced internationalists into the club, and they can't handle the pressure. Yet we're expecting just because somebody was brought up 25 miles from Ibrox that they should be able to handle the pressure. I think it's a very different environment to many years gone by. So when you had the likes of your Barry Ferguson's coming through, and go even further back to that, players that came through in the 90s, like Charlie Miller and stuff. it was a completely different culture, completely different time. And these guys now, they're coming through technically like robots. Do you know what I mean? They're all drilled to within an inch of the life. There's not a lot of chance for players to come out and actually express and show what they can actually do. The one that has probably got the most of us excited was obviously Patterson when he come through. He's obviously had a really good grounding. I know he was linked to the Scottish FA school system as well. Him and Billy Gilmore, they always promote that they were heavily involved in that. But I think the big one for us now is going to be Alex Lowry, in terms of seeing whether he can take that step. I think he's probably a really good example of somebody that's got all of the ability in the world, but if either the manager doesn't fancy him or he's not doing enough to warrant that jersey, I think, was it Bale said his teammates have got to earn the respect. He's got to earn the respect of his teammates before he'll play. These are all things we don't see as fans. We see the highlights. We see what he does when he comes on in the glimpses and the flashes. We don't see the day-to-day stuff. Now, albeit, let us see Alex Lowry play, and if he doesn't perform, then we can go, well, you were right. But on the other hand, managers' jobs are on the line. So if they throw a few youth lads in and they maybe don't perform, it's not going to be the Rangers fans going, oh, but he tried the youth. It's going to be get him out and get the next guy in. So it is a really difficult one, but I would like to see a bit more, even if it's like one a season comes in and cements themselves in the 16. I think that wouldn't be a bad model or a bad style. But I've just seen the goal back from the youth game there, so the big number 9 took it well, so it was a good start there after 23 minutes. You've been doing a great job.
I know, there's us potentially panning the academy as the under 18s are defeating Celtic in a cup final. I know I'm sort of half watching it in the reflection in your pictures behind you, GB, so don't move the camera or anything like that too much. All right. Benny, I'll come on to you and ask you what you think about Craig Mulholland's departure. You know, again, I know we talked about it previously in terms of he's a guy, he's obviously been there at the club a long time, and we'll get into what we think of the academy as a whole. But I'm going to ask this question again because I saw it in social media and in the comments, and it's is there anything to look into the fact that we're playing this final and, you know, this has been announced the day before it, and where do you sit on Mulholland leaving?
As to whether there's anything in that, I hadn't really thought of it. Surprising maybe a little bit that it's announced just before that, or perhaps again it could be another motivational thing for the players, you know, give one last performance sort of thing for the final. What do I think in general? I think 20 years is a long time. Is a long service. Is that 1-1?
Yeah.
Oh fuck. Right. Excuse me. So yeah, no, 20 years is a long time, and I think, you know, as he said himself, that, you know, you got to know when the time is right to move on. And as JB said, if he is going to Nottingham Forest, that's, you know, that's a good opportunity. And at the end of the day, they're not going to be looking at somebody that's absolutely useless at their job. He has done good things for the club. But I do, again, it comes back to the whole, I think a refresh in many different things at the club is good.
Yeah, I totally agree. Chris, I'll come on to you with the next few point here. The sort of second part of that statement was from, and Rangers are keen to point out, newly appointed Chief Executive James Bisgrove says, on behalf of the board, I'd sincerely like to thank Craig as he moves on, having transformed our academy into one which is on a par and even exceeds many clubs in Europe's biggest leagues. That is definitely something we'll come back to. Craig will leave the club with a fantastic legacy, which includes professionalisation of our women's programme, being the leader on the B teams, being introduced into our senior Scottish football, creating our Beauclair Academy Performance School, and having brought in over 15 million in academy player sales in the last 5 years. Together with Michael Beale, John Bennett and the board, I will now lead through a process to identify his replacement as we continue a wide-ranging transformation on all areas of the football club. Now, there's some really interesting points in that short statement from Bisgrove. The first question I'll ask you is, do you agree with that that Auchenhowie is on par and even exceeds many clubs in Europe's biggest leagues?
I think facility-wise, it's right up there, but I don't think the academy is producing enough for the standard that it is at. So I'm going to go against the grain and say he was part of what needed refreshed in the club. I think he was failing as well. Off the top of my head, you've got 20 years he's been there, so you've got Patterson. I'm surprised Alan Hutton wasn't mentioned in the article as well, because he would have been coming through the academy at that time. He went for big money. But apart from the two, we've struggled to keep. You've got Gilmore, Maboud, Wilson. They all went to other clubs down south and for minimal fees as well. So I think we need to try and, obviously we're at the bottom of the table. We're these big teams. We're scraping for the players that they aren't picking up. But I think we need to try and hold on to our players somehow. As JB was saying, it's difficult for us to play players as the manager. As JB was saying, the manager's job's on the line. Gerrard was reluctant to play youth. Bale, he's going to not play as much youth recently either. But the fans we're an unforgiving fan base. As soon as a player comes in, or we go on a bit of a bad streak, it's play the youngsters the season's by. But you know for a fact, if the next couple of weeks don't go to plan, it'll be, they're not good enough, get them out the team. We've seen it with Leon King at the start of the season. He was kind of hung it too dry. It wasn't really his fault.
Yeah, no, that is an interesting point as well. I think with Leon King, I mean, looking back on that now, you know, I know Craig especially was quite harsh on him when he was in the team, but looking back on it, I think he done well given that he was totally chucked into it and wasn't playing alongside an established centre half. But listen, that's a discussion for another time. JB, just going to touch on that point that Bisgrove made in terms of as we continue a wide-ranging transformation on all areas of the football club. What do you think about that? I don't know if I'm reading between the lines a wee bit too much here, but it looks like maybe some of the traditional roles like director of football and CEO, well, I was going to say CEO, Bisgrove is the new CEO, and the head of academy might actually be evolving, changing into something new. Can you see this role getting merged with something else, or is it Zeb Jacobs at the club at the moment? Can you see him just getting pushed into this role? And the other, I know we were discussing it in our group chat this morning. I can't remember the guy's name, but the Southampton academy directors recently, I think he's leaving his position at the end of the season as well. Would you see us just doing a straight sort of like for like swap?
Well, the fact that we're getting beat 2-1 now, it's a Mulholland out. But yeah, I think it's as we touched on earlier, I think we've all said it's that refresh, isn't it? That complete, almost a full root up approach to try and make sure that we're cleaning the decks, and it almost feels extremely refreshed. There's almost a case of where can we get the best in class from now, whether that person is from Southampton or whatever it might be. But it's almost going to be a case of we're probably doing it at the right time. We're doing it with a couple of weeks left to go in the season, ahead of a very big pre-season. I'd have been more worried if we were having these conversations either early into next season or over the summer. So it very much feels as if we're almost kind of drawing the line under this season, which I think we're all happy to do. And then almost a case of, right, okay, what can we do moving forward that's going to benefit the club? What is the remit of the new Craig Mulholland, as you touched on there? Is the remit that you've got to try and get players fast-tracked into the first team? And it's almost a case of, okay, how do we do that? As we touched on earlier, I don't agree with our loan process at the moment. So if you think about, if we're sending lads out 2019, 20, 21 to Scottish Championship clubs and then not getting a game, they're never going to play for Rangers. Let's have it right. If they haven't got the physicality or the pace or something that says, right, you're showing us that you're going to be able to handle it for Rangers. If you can't get a game for a Championship club, I'm sorry, you're not going to make it. Don't get me wrong, if somebody goes there and sets the world alight, and then that comes to an opportunity and they progress up, but we're not doing that at the moment. I'd rather see players playing a dozen games for a SPL club, and then getting a feel whether they make it there, as opposed to the Championship and League One. For me, it doesn't serve much benefit. The B team, we probably just need to understand whether that's fit for purpose and what does that look and feel like. And we're going to try and use that a wee bit smarter than what we have in the previous seasons. I mean, I don't know whether Yilmaz would have been possible. I'm just thinking out loud here, but could Yilmaz have maybe played some games for the B team to really ramp his fitness up, given his age? And I know you can't play too many, just as we make it 2-2. Yeah, there we go, 2-2. So it wasn't Yilmaz; it was the number 9 again. So, but yeah, no, it's as I keep saying it, it's just almost a case of we've got to look forward now, and the fact that I do like the words that Bisgrove's using. However, he does love a soundbite, so he's definitely, you can tell the guy's worked in marketing in terms of some of the phrases he used, and John Bennett's the same with the best in class phrase and stuff. But it's now on them to deliver. Previously, there was almost they could make these noises, and there was people around about them that were kind of left to operate it. It's on them too now to deliver. So let's see what the future brings.
Yeah, Ben, I think JB's raised a fantastic point there in terms of what is the remit of the academy director. Is it, to bring, I mean, Bisgrove's, rightly pointed out that he's brought in 15 million players in academy sales over the last 5 years, but surely it's more than that. I mean, apart from Patterson and very sporadic appearances from sort of other youth team players, there's been nobody really coming through that I can think of. I mean, I was actually trying to think of who the £15 million in players was. The 3 names I could come up with was Nathan Patterson, obviously Ross McCrory when we sort of did that weird swap deal thing for Scott Wright with Aberdeen, and Charlie McCann is the only other player. I think we got a sort of low fee for him. What do you think? Do you think that is successful?
Not enough. No, not enough. I feel that it's when you say the 15 million, and we know that Patterson was the majority of it. It's kind of it doesn't really illustrate a fair reflection of 15 million could in other circumstances. If that 15 million had come from him selling 3 or 4 young players, then he's maybe doing a bit more, isn't he? Than just one. Not luck, but I mean there is a certain element of luck to have that sort of level of player that you can move on, and to have a buyer that will maybe pay potentially over the odds for him at that stage. But I think the remit should be to be increasing the the amount of players that we're getting to the first team, but to also equally to be bringing in other sources of money in terms of, even if players aren't going to make it to the first team, if we were selling 2 or 3, a year or something like that, and bringing in a little bit of money, it all adds up together. And I think that could be another thing, so that we're seeing that at least it is producing something for the club. Breaking into the Rangers first team is very, very difficult. We all saw Alex Lowry come and looked absolutely outstanding, and he hasn't fully kicked on as of yet. I hope and think that he will. But it's a big step up, and I think when we look at what the B team are playing, to go from that level, I mean, we wouldn't be signing a player that's playing in the league that they're playing in, for the Rangers first team. So to be asking somebody to go from that to the Rangers first team is huge, and especially considering we're never done wanting signings, talking about signings. So you can't have it always. But I just want to say what JB said there. I think about the timing of all these changes, not just the academy director, but the collective changes. I think this is the perfect time for it. We all don't want to be in the position that we're in, but we are. So this is the time to, as we'll get on to in terms of who we'll be playing over the next few weeks and stuff. But this is the time to reset the club and to give time for people to get used to new rules or to the changes that are in place at the club. So I think the time, and I think that was a good point.
Yeah, I totally agree there with what you've said. It's just from where I'm coming from, it's where Bisgrove says, and our academy into one which is on a par and exceeds many clubs in Europe's biggest leagues. I mean, you look at all that's exactly how I feel about it, Ben. That face you've just pulled there, I think that's a bold statement to say, because you need to do both. I mean, maybe apart from the English Premier League, and I'm looking at maybe apart from Arsenal, because they've got a few sort of youth team players that have come through. You look at all the other major European teams, they sell their youth players for significant fees, and they all have players that have come through their academy, even a few in the bench, or even one or two starting in the first 11. Chris, there's a few questions here that I'll ask as well, kind of along the same lines. It's from Timothy Sharp. Mulholland been here for 20 years. How many regular first-team players has he provided? And I think that is the crux of the matter. In 20 years, I don't think it's unreasonable to have expected one or two, especially given, we won't go over it again, but we weren't playing against sort of top-tier opposition for a few years, shall we say. Where do you sit in all this? Should Rangers have had more first-team players from the academy, basically?
Definitely. It just goes back to what I was saying earlier. The academy's no producing for the facilities that we've got. As JB was saying, I think we should be looking at getting at least one player in and around the squad every season for it to look like it's worthwhile. Hopefully, it's not just a soundbite for Bisgrove, and we are looking to a big radical overhaul of the infrastructure, and hopefully start benefiting from it.
Yeah.
If it's any consolation, Kyle, the under-18s are definitely playing a similar style to the Rangers first team, because the mistakes the two centre-halves have just made in relation to Celtic's third goal would give Suter and Davis a good run for the money. Absolute shambolic defending. So at least there's that connection throughout the club, it looks like. So.
do you know, ironically enough, you've brought me on to my next point rather nicely with that, because look, we'll spend a few more minutes in the academy. I don't want to take up the full pod talking about it, because I want to talk about what Rangers should do for the last 6 games, and we'll maybe look a wee bit ahead to Aberdeen. But that is something, having been at the I was going to say I was fortunate enough, but I definitely wouldn't call it fortunate, being at Ibrox for the B team game, where Celtic were victors in that game against Rangers. Now looking back on it, it was a shocking decision from the referee to award that Bud had come out of the box. That was a shocking decision. But when Gerrard was here, in terms of the youth setup, one thing that I could always say about them, JB, was that they were being coached in the same way that the first 11 were being coached, in terms of, it was the attacking fullbacks, the strong centre-halves, the midfield players. It was like for like. I know you've just said that about the team there, but that doesn't seem to have been happening anymore. Is that something that we should maybe go back to?
Yeah, I think so. I think there needs to be a ethos right throughout the club in terms of you hear it, let's not compare ourselves to Ajax, because that's not going to happen overnight. But in terms of the way that they set up, it's almost a case of there's a one philosophy that runs right throughout. I think Man City are the next to be doing it. I know that United in years gone by, that was always their approach. Whatever the youth team did, it was almost a case they mirrored performances, and they had mentors within the first team. Having known a couple of ex-players, they had mentors within the first team within their role that would ultimately be a soundboard for them. So I think it's almost a case of now is if they're good enough, they'll be playing. I think we have to have faith in the manager. I think one thing about this manager is he's been there and done it. He's done the youth coach. He's been through the journey, so he'll know physically the importance, the technical capability, and probably the most important for playing for Rangers is whether these guys can handle it mentally. And I think Beale is in a really good position to do that. I think a lot of the signings that we're going to see, like at Olympia, where a lot of the signings we are going to see are going to probably be English players whose careers have maybe just gone slightly to the left, and Beale thinks there's enough in there that he can bring them back on track, i.e. Cantwell. I think I know this isn't going to be looking for next season signs, but if you look at some of the names that have been linked, Kieran Dahl, loads of ability, absolute plenty of ability. Seen a lot of them in his Everton youth, but again, signing a player injured, there is always going to be that risk. But if we can get these guys up and running and they can fulfill their potential, and we can do it on a nice price, and then we can almost recycle them and get them back out again. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think Jack Butland obviously is in a slightly different situation in the fact that he's that wee bit older, but again, somebody that needs that. You always need that kick up the arse again to get going. I know we don't see ourselves as a place where players come to improve, where we will almost want finished articles on winners from day one. But hopefully Beale can do that with a mixture of getting the most out of players, because that's what he's going to have to do. He's going to have to get the most out of the limited budget that we've got. And if there are young players that are coming through and are showing that they've got the ability, the technical skills, and the mental capacity to be able to take it on board, then I think we have got a good manager to do that. So it will be interesting. I say I'd like to see us getting some of these players. I know we're going to get to this shortly. Getting some of the first team players in when it's not a code red situation. It's almost a case of like when we threw King in, obviously in the Champions League game next to Sands. It was just an absolute disaster for the kid, and I hope that he's not scarred from it. And obviously he made that mistake was away at St Mirren. I don't think we've seen him since. Maybe the odd bench appearance here and there, but I'd like to see us being sensible from now to the end of the season. We can't be going in and throwing the youth players all in and just going, oh, the season's gone, just write it off. It won't work like that, because everyone on this call, everyone listening, Rangers fans around the world, if we lose our next 3 games, whether it's youth, experienced players leaving at the end of the season, Beale's going to be getting asked questions whether we agree that's the right approach. But because we demand success and we demand winning, that's what it is. What it is.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to sum it up. It is what it is because we demand success. This is the last point, I promise you guys. I'll make. Yeah. Oh, there we go. Fight, man. This has been a hell of a roller coaster. I pod it up and down in terms
I feel like, I feel as if I'm on an audition for Jeff Sterling's job here. So,
oh no, I don't know who that makes the rest of us, but I will leave that to the viewers to let us know. Look, last point on the youth setup, Ben here. Obviously, we know that the B team or the Lowland League voted not to include the Rangers and Celtic B teams in it next year. I know there was a bit of a mixed feelings on it. What do you think we should do? Do you think that we should, have a reserve league? I don't know if that's just pie in the sky stuff, because I know that the other teams in the SPFL didn't feel that they were getting value of it for money, which was, I think, is bonkers. I know a few years ago we had that sort of UEFA Youth League that we had. I quite like that idea. I thought, and when we were away, I loved that when we could watch. I know, did we go over to the UAE or Dubai or the under-18s? I remember being off a half day and working and sort of watching that on my phone. Is that what do you think we should do? Do you think we should stick to sort of domestic games, or do you think we should sort of open it up and try and arrange sort of friendlies or trying to get back into that UEFA league?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, I think there's no good solution because the Lowland League, to me, serves a bit of a purpose, in terms of its competitive football. It's a bit more physical. It's against men. But as I've said before, there's a hell of a step from that to playing for Rangers. So I feel like we need to have the reserve league would be great, but it's not going to happen. The other teams just aren't going to make it happen. I think probably only ourselves and them would be for it. Maybe Hearts, but we need to be getting competitive football. And I think the European League was very good. I think really as much as we can, testing ourselves against the best players. So doing that on that European stage, you're gonna be doing that. You're gonna be challenging yourself. You're gonna lose games as well, obviously. But I mean that's part of it. That's part of the learning process for them. So really we need to be trying to find a way. It's very difficult. It doesn't matter who we bring in, as academy director or whatever role you want to call it. If they're not playing competitive football on a regular basis, they're going to really, really struggle to make that next step.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you've said there. These at all levels, we should be playing the absolute best available to us, because that's the only way you're going to get better is by playing against the best and learning things. And yeah, I totally agree. It will be interesting to see what's happening next season, but hopefully Craig Mulholland's sorted that out before he leaves. Right, Chris, we'll get back to sort of talking about matters of the first 11 a wee bit more here. I suppose it still does incorporate the youth, but it's what do you think Rangers should do in the last 5 games of the season? 5 dead rubbers. I know there's no game against Celtic that doesn't mean anything, but there's nothing to be gained from it in terms of trophies or anything like that. There's been lots of questions coming in about the who should we be playing till the end of the season? Should we be playing youth? And where do you sit in that? Should we be giving guys like Lovelace, he's in particular who I'm looking at, Divine, King, and Lowry that's already been mentioned, are these the guys that we should be seeing from now until the end of the season? Because the pressure's off.
I suppose you can look at it for 2 ways. We need to see them at some point. So as you said, pressure's off. They can fling them in, but are they ready? Are they just going to be lambs to the slaughter? I mean, if we go out next week, the weekend, and play Aberdeen and get beat at Ibrox off Aberdeen, all hell will break loose for the fans. They're not going to say, "Oh, it's just the youth." Oh, it was a good experience for the youth. I think I would incorporate a couple of them into the team. I think we need to just use the rest of the season to see who can contribute for next season. The likes of Matondo and Yilmaz being the main 2. We need to get them a good run of games for the start and see if they've got it for next season. I think Matondo's looked decent in these last couple of cameo appearances. I think he merits a start before Kent. Anyway, we can't do any worse than Kent done at the weekend. Hope he doesn't pull a shirt on again. Could try out different formations for next season as well. If you wanted to have a look at what we're talking about, maybe like the 3 at the back with Suter, Davies and Goldson, you could maybe have a look at that if you wanted. But as we were saying earlier, fans need to accept that the results don't matter now, apart from the Celtic game, obviously, but we're a fickle fan base. It's not going to work like that.
That's it, exactly. And I'll stick with you, Chris, just for a wee second. So you mentioned someone in there in particular that I know a lot of people have been talking about, and that's Ridvan Yilmaz. Surely Beale has to play him from now until the end of the season if he's fit. If he doesn't, I think we can all safely assume that he is off skiing the summer, which is another big black mark against our previous director of football, Ross Wilson's name. Where do you sit in the whole Yilmaz thing? Would you keep playing Barisic or would you chuck Yilmaz in there?
No, but I think Yilmaz needs to get as many 90 minutes under his belt to the end of the season as possible to actually see what he's like. We've barely seen him. Obviously, he's been out injured long term, but I don't know. I think with the outlay that we've spent on him, and he came highly regarded as well, but he just, don't know. It's like a totally different player to Borna. Lots of things. Borna likes to go down and get the crosses in. Yilmaz looks a bit more direct, and he cuts in a wee bit more as well. But I think he did look good in a couple of his appearances. So hopefully we can get a lot of minutes under his belt and see if he's going to be able to fit in next season or no. But I can see us signing a new left back regardless.
Yeah, I think so. God, it's going to be so interesting between now and the start of next season. JB, we'll kind of move on to the Aberdeen game at the weekend. I can't believe I'm playing them again in such a short period of time. I think everybody knows outside the other half of the old firm, Aberdeen are a team that I don't enjoy playing an awful lot. Yeah, I mean, up in Pittodrie, that shambles of a performance that was up there. What have Rangers got to do this time? What have they got to do differently, basically, from what they did at Pittodrie, other than take their chances?
I was just about to say is actually take the chances, and I think that's going to be the message for the team for the season. I think it's almost the case of we should have been out of sight in that game, but the fact is we weren't, and we've said that so many times. I mean, Sakala obviously has come under a lot of heat, shall we say, since last Sunday. but that was probably just a continuation of the week before as well. Again, if we go 1-0 up in the first 15-20 minutes, takes that chance where he goes 1-on-1 after Tillman slipped them through, then you're probably going to say it's probably going to be a different game. You never know what the outcome's going to be, but we've just got to be more clinical, and that's just across the board. The decision making's got to be better. There's a group of players there now that I think the fans have lost the fans, and I think they've also got again where they are that fickle. With that, they've also got an opportunity from now to the end of the season. If we can go out and win the last set of games from now to the end of the season, and some really good, strong performances from some of them, they need to justify their existence. So I'm thinking of the likes of Yilmaz. You could argue Lundstrom, Arfield, Matondo. By all accounts, Scott Wright's away, so I'm not going to lose any sleep if I don't see him again. So it's almost a case of the guys who want to be there next season need to show that they want to be there. They should have been doing it all season, have it right, but we are where we are. So for me, I wouldn't be playing anyone. I wouldn't be starting anyone that's leaving. So anyone that we know isn't getting a new contract or is potentially pre-signed for other clubs, they shouldn't be starting any games for us. Now, because we are Rangers and we do need to win by any way, shape or form, if things aren't going well and we need to bring Morelos and Kent off the bench and they're in the right frame of mind, which I don't think they were on Sunday, judging by the performances, then great, they're an asset. We utilise them while we've got them. However, I think there's got to be a bigger picture at play, and we make sure that we get the balance. But it can't be a case of Matondo. So if Matondo was to come in, for example, we'll use him, and Yilmaz, they've got to come in and give it absolutely 150%, because if they don't, I don't think the Rangers fans will forgive them. And going into next season with a squad of complete dis and unbelief, I mean, don't get me wrong, we'll still take stupid numbers to pre-season friendlies. We'll take good crowds to the European games. That's not in question. But similar to the banners getting held up above the board, if a fan base loses a group of players, it takes some effort to turn that group of players back around. And this group of players, I think we've lost a lot of them from a fan base. The connection's well gone. So there's a few people there that are going to need to earn our trust again. Whether the 4 or 5 games till the end of the season is enough for them, probably not. I'll put Davis into that category as well, of players that are going to need to show from now to the end of the season that they want it. But again, that is also with a sprinkle of youth as well. So if we are winning comfortably, then let's get these lads on. Let's not get them on when we're getting beat 1-0 or we need to try and change a game. Let's try and get the game won early. And I think that's been a lot of our problem over the last 2 seasons. We haven't been able to blood any youth. We've had them all sitting on the bench, but because we haven't been, if that word clinical again, we haven't been able to rotate them. Everybody knows on the TII group knows my thoughts on using substitutions. You're 4-0 up against Ross County at home, and Tom Lawrence is limping, yet you leave him on for another 20 minutes. So it's an interesting one. Just jumping back to something we were talking about earlier. Sorry, and probably should have been time earlier. What are we doing with these clubs that we've signed agreements with and partnerships? So, like, the Rangers flag hangs outside Hamburg Stadium, Bengaluru, or Bangalore, depending on how you say it, and Orange County. What's the point? So, I mean, I think we sent a couple of youth lads to Orange County during COVID. So they're probably over there having the time of their lives. But then, Hamburg relationship, what is it? Why don't we have pre-season friendlies? Why don't we send the best of our youth to there for them to go and develop for 6 months, and then they come back, because you know they're going to be going into a competitive environment. I'm picking Hamburg specifically there, but Bengaluru and Orange County, is there no players there that we could be taking a little look at and going, right, is this an untapped market? Are the players in them leagues that these clubs are seeing every day that we could be getting the heads up on? But yeah, that's just me bouncing back to that thought. But in terms of the next set of games, just win, and try and get some of the youth in, and players who want to be there next season need to show. Just as BBC Scotland showing the best of Alex Lowry at the moment, but unfortunately it looks like his highlights are from last season. So there you go.
I was going to say that's not going to be a long reel for this season, JB. But like with us, I was very impressive there, managing to watch a game and answer that question and give quite a comprehensive answer. So fair play to you, my man, for that. But yeah, do you agree, Ben, with largely what JB said there about? I think a lot of Rangers supporters are thinking the same way, that if you aren't going to be here next season, you haven't earned a right to play for us for the rest of the season. And I mean, as harsh as that sounds, looking at guys like Kent, looking at Morelos. I mean, for me, if Tillman's off, I think Tillman's, arguably been our player of the year this year. If he's off or has not given an intention to stay, I don't want him playing to the end of the season as well. Where do you stand at all? Would you be chucking guys in like Lovelace, Rice is a couple of names that I've heard. I know we've seen some comments about these players not doing particularly well in the game that's going on at the moment. But what would you be doing?
Yeah, I think the games between now and the end of the season have three purposes for me. I think we have to be smart about the players that we're gonna that are going to be leaving the club. Now, I'm not talking the Kents and Morelos share the contract players, but I'm talking players that we want to be leaving the club. Alice Scott Wright, I think you put him on the field a little bit to put him in the shop window that little bit more, so that we're able to say this fella's playing. And I think some players will fall into the category of that, of both of us trying to see will they have a future, but also putting them in. So if Yilmaz, for example, wasn't going to be long term, we don't know that yet, but we want to put him on the field and at least be able to say, look, he's still playing, he's still, so that teams in Turkey and such are looking at him playing football, and he's in the minds of teams going into the summer that little bit more. So I think we've got that. We've got putting those players in. We've got getting a look at the youth players. But they need to be at a certain level. I mean, there's no point in us putting out 11 youth players. There's absolutely no sense in that. They're lambs to the slaughter at that point. So it needs to be a balance of players that we either haven't made our mind up, like Matondo, like Yilmaz, as well as the youth players that we've got hope for, like a Lovelace. But I would be more inclined to possibly at the start anyway. The first two games are probably the most important. Given the opposition, I would be inclined to kind of start with a stronger mixed team. But I don't want to see Kent or Morelos again. I think the last Old Firm, I kind of made my mind up fully about Kent, and this Sunday didn't change it, obviously. So I think they're no use to us going forward because they're going to leave and we're not going to get anything for them. So we owe them nothing now at this point. So if they sit in the stand, I have no problem. Like JB says, if we need a goal with 15 minutes to go, I have no problem bringing either on. But I don't think we need to be starting them. The only one that's leaving the club, maybe two. If I would probably give Arfield the contract, but if he was to be leaving the club, I think towards the end of the season, I think he probably deserves, a sort of send off, and I think Alan McGregor deserves a send off. But other than that, the rest they can go and they don't deserve to be played. I'll be playing the likes of Davies every game to try and see to make our mind up about. I'll be playing Yilmaz every game. I would like to see Devine get some football. We know where we are with Tav, so let's see what the options are.
I know you've mentioned Davies here. I'm going to say it. He's the one, and this is Stephen Davis, I should say. Actually, I hope that he can get on for a minute at the end of the last game of the season or something, just so we can, because he is one player. Arfield I certainly put into that bracket, and obviously Alan McGregor as well. But like I said, we all thought that was his last game. Scott 05 there obviously points out that McGregor has his testimonial in July against Newcastle. I'm sure we'll all be at the Custode derby there. But yes, I totally agree with what you've said. If you've no future at Rangers, then I don't see why we should be playing you. Chris, last point here before I get everybody's score predictions. RFC 72 says play McCrory, Devine, Goldson, King, Yilmaz, Rice, Raskin, Cantwell, Matondo, Lovelace, Hadji, and see how they do. And his justification for that is we did it against Hearts and beat them last season. Do you agree with that?
That's a good point. Like, whoever we're going to be playing after the split now is essentially the better teams in the league, so it's the best chance of seeing how good they're going to be. I would play McCrory. Maybe give McGregor the last game as his send-off. I don't think his last game should be a defeat against Celtic. Devine, I would like to see him get minutes, but can you see Tav getting dropped for obvious reasons? King, again, it would be good to see him getting minutes again. So he had a difficult start of the season, so it'd be good to see him getting some minutes. Yilmaz, as we said earlier, he has to play every game, I think. Rice, can you see him starting in the middle? Matondo over Kent all day for me. As I said earlier, I don't care if Beale changed Kent's nappies. I don't want to see him anywhere near the team again. Hadji, as Ben was saying, put him in the short window at least. I don't see a long-term future for Hadji anymore. I think we've kind of went past his level. I think he'll struggle to get to the level that we need. I think he'll move on. And Lovely, Morelos, he's only fit striker, so I can see him getting kept around about the team, but I wouldn't be against seeing Lovelace getting some minutes out.
Yes, I've been on here previously saying that Zach Lovelace is a guy I really want to see just once or twice in the first team, just to see what he can do, because you don't get called up for the England under-17s, especially when you're not at an English Premier League club in terms of the youth setup. If you're rubbish, so look, let us know in the comments, everybody, what your score predictions are. I'm just going to go around the guys and be bold and get a score prediction. So JB, I'll come to you first. What do you think the score will be at Ibrox against Aberdeen at the weekend?
2-0 Aberdeen. No, I'll go 3-1 Rangers. 3-1 Rangers. Would you a penalty, aren't we, surely? So I'll go for a Tav pen and Conor Goldson and I'm struggling for strikers. Sakala off the bench.
Oh, don't. There's Scott Patterson just having a minor heart attack at the thought of that. Ben, I'll come to you. Who do you think, or what do you think the score will be at the weekend?
I'm going to go 3-2 Rangers. Kent hat-trick. No, I'm definitely not serious about that one. But 3-2 Rangers. I'm going to go with Hadji will get one, Matondo will get one, and Lundstrom.
Yeah, apart from the 2 goals conceded, I think the Rangers support would largely be happy with those scorers. And Chris, lastly, what do you think the score will be?
Ben just stole my joke there. I was going 2-0 Rangers, Kent Morelos, but don't know. I'll go 2-1 Rangers. Don't think we will concede. Scoring-wise, Matondo and Sakala.
Yeah, there we go. Timothy Sharp said 2-0 Tav. We've got our very own Shug saying 5-0 Rangers revenge. I would very dearly to see that happening. Teddy Bears here says, cheers everyone, and I think we'll hammer Aberdeen 1-0, and RFC 1872 says 1-0 as well. It's going to be tough until the end of the season, but there are changes ahead, and I think there's a lot of good movement happening off the field, and hopefully there should be some interesting movement happening on the field recently as well. Just to back up what JB said earlier on, the Broomloan Collective, they are holding a retro shirt day for that Aberdeen game. They'll have buckets for the collection. That is going to the I can't quite see the name of the charity, but is it the Emily Smiley charity, which is a charity that the Bell family have elected to have the donations going to. But as always, just want to say thanks to the contributors for joining us tonight, guys.
Cheers.
And thanks to everybody for tuning in and watching out. We will see you again at the weekend with a post-match reaction. So see you then, guys.